I've had this Bible verse stuck in my head. It's John 10:10. The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have life and have it abundantly. I've been thinking about this verse a lot, turning it over and over in my mind, trying to understand it. It's truly an amazing verse, but I was disappointed in the small amount of information I was able to find on it in commentaries I have access to. I thought it might be helpful to share my initial beliefs on the verse, my process for trying to understand it, and the conclusions I finally came to. My first thoughts on 10:10 were pretty far off. I assumed the thief meant the devil. The word "the" seems to imply a singular entity, and thieves are bad, so the devil just kind of fits. When it comes to have life and have it abundantly, I kept getting the phrase "a rich and satisfying life" in my head. I found it odd to think that until I realized that's how the New Living Translation renders it. I don't 100% trust the NLT. It's let me down in the past. After my initial inspection of the verse, I knew I had some work to do in order to make sense of it. The most important element to understanding absolutely anything is context. Determining the context of this verse clears up this whole "the thief" situation real quick. Throughout chapter 10, Jesus is contrasting himself with others using various figures of speech. He speaks of a shepherd versus a man who is a thief, robber, and stranger, the good shepherd versus the hired hand, and in our verse 10, himself and the thief. Although these may at first glance look like individuals, verse 8 shows us that they are in fact multiple people. It reads, "All who came before me are thieves and robbers, but the sheep did not listen to them." So if he's talking about multiple people, why does he say the thief? What Jesus is talking about is a category of people, a classification and description. For example, if I say, "the postman delivers the mail," nobody is under the impression that I'm referring to a single individual whose responsibility it is to distribute every parcel and letter, even though I said, "the postman delivers the mail." It is the same thing in our verse. The postman delivers the mail, the thief steals, kills, and destroys, and there are a bunch of them. But who are they? Looking back to chapter 9, we find that Jesus is speaking to the Pharisees. Nearly all of chapter 10 is a continuation of that conversation. In the figures of speech Jesus uses to refer to himself, he speaks of someone in authority who is leading a flock. The ones he contrasts himself with are law-breaking, irresponsible, and not followed by the flock. Combining this with his audience, I feel it is safe to say that Jesus is referring to false teachers in general and the Pharisees specifically. To make things easier, I'm just going to plug in false teachers into the verse. So that explains one issue, but what about the other? What does Jesus mean by "they may have life and have it abundantly"? I'll start by pointing out what may be obvious to some. Jesus is not talking about two separate things just because he uses the word "and." He is saying what they are going to receive, life, and how they are going to receive it, abundantly. It's like if I say I drove on the highway and broke the speed limit. What I am doing is driving on the highway. How I am doing it is so fast that I break the law. To simplify things, I'm just going to change "life and have it abundantly" into "abundant life." That's great and all, but what then does abundant life mean? It would be incredibly helpful if there were other verses in John that either state why Jesus came or what life is. Turns out there are verses for both of these. We'll start with John 3:17. "For God did not send his Son into the world to condemn the world, but in order that the world might be saved through him." Okay, so why did Jesus come into the world? That the world might be saved through him. That would imply that being saved is connected to abundant life, because they both refer to why Jesus came. If we hop one verse over, back to John 3:16, it says, "For God so loved the world that he gave his only Son, that whoever believes in him should not perish, but have eternal life. Here you have Jesus being brought in again, and the reason this time is for eternal life. I would argue that the eternal life mentioned here is the same thing as the abundant life in our verse 10. While it is obvious that it has to do with being saved, thanks to 3:17, we don't yet have a concrete explanation for what eternal life is. What we need is a definition for eternal life. Let's look at John 17:3. And this is eternal life, that they know you, the only true God, and Jesus Christ whom you have sent. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. So eternal life is knowing God. Eternal life is knowing Jesus. This connects so well. The concept of knowing God, knowing Jesus, is spoken of in the same discourse as our verse 10. Just a few verses after 10:10, starting in 10:14, Jesus says, I am the good shepherd. I know my own, and my own know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father, and I lay my life down for the sheep. Now, if we take what we've just learned and plug it into verse 10, it would read, the false teachers come only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may know God and know me. I think that's really powerful, but there's one more verse to look at that I feel takes it to a whole new level. Let's see how John 14:6 sheds light on what Jesus has been saying in John 10. The verse reads, Jesus said to him, I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me. Jesus claims he is the way. In 10:9, Jesus claims to be the door. How does one get into the sheepfold? They use the door. The door is the only way. Jesus says this earlier in 10:1. Truly, truly, I say to you, he who does not enter the sheepfold by the door, but climbs in by another way, that man is a thief and a robber. We know now that the thieves and robbers are the false teachers. Jesus' second claim in 14:6 is that he is the truth. So Jesus is not like the false teachers. He's a truth teacher. What he says and teaches is true to the point that he embodies truth. He personifies truth. Jesus' third claim is that he is the life. What is the life? Well, it's eternal life. It's abundant life. And it's Jesus. If we plug this into our verse, then it reads, the false teachers come only to steal and kill and destroy. I came that they may have me. Jesus came so he could give us himself. To be saved is to have Jesus. To know someone is to have them in a way give themselves to you, to let you know them. It is the same with Christ. We know him because he has given himself to us. God is an infinite being, existing eternally with all power and understanding, with no weakness or limitation. And in the person of Jesus Christ, he gives himself to us.